So thanks for peeling yourself away from your desk for a few minutes. We have there's hundreds of people from the industry that's tuning in right now. So there's tons of things happening right now, tons of announcements. We're going to take everybody through everything. We have some special guests, but we're going to do it at record time because these are busy people and we're going to get them back to their desks as fast as possible too. Real quick, we're going to do some introductions for anyone that doesn't know. Our Senior Vice President of Business Development, we have AFTAB, we have our Senior Vice President of Operations, and of course we have our Dan, and then we have Hector, which is our Director of 10DLC, 10-digit long code compliance. And besides that, we're going to get right into this, guys. And we have lots to cover. So let's get started. Lessons from Super Tuesday. We went through Super Tuesday, went through primaries. It was a busy stretch. It was busier than even I thought it was going to be. Fairness to the DCAs and the MNOs. I mean, there was tens of millions, hundreds of millions of messages just on Purely's end. Yeah. And you can imagine they're dealing with that across the industry. They're always asking for projections. And as an industry, we're bad at getting them proper projections, mainly because our clients and their clients are bad at getting them projections. So there was, I would say there's definitely some periods of time where there was some hiccups on MMS, but that was only when we're seeing peaks of these hundreds of millions of messages, right?
Yeah. Monday night was an extremely busy time, and
a couple days before the election day, there will be issues with messages going out. Your vendor's going to say that they have enough capacity, and that's fine. I'll guarantee they don't have as much as Purely, guaranteed. But they're going to say that, and it doesn't matter who says what to you. Because at the end of the day, all the traffic's going to the same place. And there's only so much MMS capacity for the whole country, and we're all using it all. And that's what it comes down to, right?
And, Purely could react fast with this.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And then what's the complaint issue? So this is probably a big takeaway for a lot of our clients is us continuously trying to educate and make sure these guys understand that, hey guys, complaints matter. That's what drives a lot of what happens with the DCAs. So keep your complaints down. You're not going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Right? What are you seeing? What did you see with that?
Well, we've seen that the carriers, the DCAs, and the MNOs have become much more reactionary to complaints. Even one complaint can result in a brand suspension. Yeah. So it's always something we have to be aware of. And it doesn't seem to be tied to the volume of traffic. And this is something that's come up as well around the Super Tuesday point, where we saw those volumes of traffic increase. It didn't really make a difference whether you had one complaint the week before and then one more the next week when you tripled your volume. The carrier still looked at it with the same severity level.
So it doesn't matter if you're sending 1 million and getting 2 complaints and then 2 million getting 4 complaints. Statistically, you're still at the same number. And the complaints aren't even your fault. They might not even be that serious, but the carriers could interpret it as there's 100% increase of complaints.
Right. Yeah.
So we don't know. So that's actually been a huge thing that we've tried to deal with. We're trying to come up with continuously ways to make our clients' lives easier, to get more messages developed. And Dan and his team really sat down and started tackling this last year. We felt that there was a need to really innovate the process to reduce complaints as well as to handle opt-outs. And Dan and his team introduced absolute brilliant product called AMP AI. And as one small part of this, he carved out an entire section to literally solve the problem of complaints. Amazing. And by turning it on, your complaints will go away. You got to tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, like it's an add-on to AMP AI that we released last year, and it specifically targets helping reduce kind of the unwanted messages that don't get caught in the normal opt-out procedure. So everyone knows the normal opt-out procedure, the 6 magic words, quit, stop, end. But there are other people that don't know or they don't think that they're going to work, and they'll send back messages such as, please stop texting me, or I'm really not interested in this, leave me alone, or don't text me anymore. Why did I get this message?
Yeah. F you, I'm not supporting you, enough is enough, you've sent me this message already. Yeah. Every single one of them is a negative sentiment.
For sure. And we also know that despite the best efforts of the campaigns that use Purely, they can't possibly look at every single
No, there's
message
going to be
that's coming back.
hundreds
It's
or
just way
thousands
too
of
many.
replies, and there's going to be always negative replies in there.
So AMP AI with this special add-on that we've built processes those incoming messages and looks at them in a holistic view, not just one, but the entire interaction with that voter.
Yeah.
And we can now predict and flag who those potential complaints are going to be, and AMP AI will automatically opt them out of your list going forward, so you don't have to deal with it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to spend volunteer resources on doing that. It's just going to take care of it for you.
I love it.
Yeah.
You're going to save clients so much money because they're continuously sending these people that are angry or negative messages. That's costing you money. And then on top of that, those people are getting angry because they're continuously getting messages. And guess what? They're going to go and they're going to complain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now they're going to complain. And then what's going to happen? Then the DCAs are going to come down and slap the wrist. And when it happens again, they're going to just boot them right off the network. And they're going to say, purely, you got to remove these guys immediately. But this will do the work for you.
In the clients that we've demoed it so far with this year, we've seen a huge reduction in the number of complaints that they've received.
You're getting good feedback on it with your clients as well?
Amazing feedback. Amazing feedback.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, look, you have to be using this. It's free. That's a no-brainer. And then also, you mentioned something about the stop language and some stuff coming out the pipeline. A little bit of an announcement. Some of the DCAs were saying to you that they're about ready to make another change.
Yeah, so we're getting signaled that a rule that was a best practice is becoming a rule, and it's around automated confirmation of opt-out.
Okay.
So, you know, this is something that a lot of people already did and Purely already did, but when you got when a voter texted stop, now the carriers are going to want to see an automated response that says that it's been received, that it's been acted upon, and they've been opted out, and what brand they've opted out from. Because there's also a lot of brand confusion. Did I opt out of messages from this campaign or all campaigns or because I'm a voter? So this having that feedback is a much, much better voter experience, which helps obviously the entire industry.
That's big news. That's big news that's coming down the pipeline. First off, I think that should have been done already. This is something that CETA has been talking about for years as best practice, but the DCA should enforce that because it is a way to also reduce complaints. It's like that same situation that happened that you were talking about where it was all that social media.
Yeah.
So, and forgive me if I've got something wrong here, but from what I understand, there was a vendor out there that was literally sending hundreds of messages to a handful of voters every single day, and the voters were saying stop, and they were continuing to send them, and they were outright ignoring them. And then that led somebody to take to social media, and they got upset. What happened there?
Yeah,
Like what?
essentially this organization took to social media, started complaining about it because they continue to get messages over and over. And we're not talking a couple of days. This spanned over a few weeks.
And hundreds. Like there's a
Hundreds,
video up there.
hundreds
It's
of
showing people
pages
jumping
and
on it.
pages of people. And it just steamrolled, and it not only affected this organization, it affected multiple organizations. And it was a big issue within the industry. Everyone was talking about it.
So with just the opt-out confirmation aside, is it possible for that situation to happen with Purely? Could we no? So if somebody replies stop,
It's automatically added to your opt-out list.
so what happened? How did this company screw up so royally?
We're not sure. Maybe it was a misconfiguration. Maybe they just never wrote that feature. We don't really know. But it's carelessness, right?
It's irresponsible.
It would be a different thing if it all happened for one day, but it went on for weeks, right? So this is something that they must have been alerted to, and they did not remedy quickly.
I mean, it's pretty bad when it takes just a bunch of people on Twitter screaming and shouting.
Well, it
that
makes our industry look bad.
it
right?
makes it look so bad.
Yeah.
I'm still shocked. So when we say it makes the industry look bad, it's because we don't do this. Our audience right now on the phone, they're not doing it. If they're a purely client, it's not happening. Mistakes happen. We're talking about something that went on for weeks
at a
to the point that these very respected political kind of fundraising guys were on X, and they were putting videos of this. And then other people started showing the videos on it. And then they were trying, they were almost begging DCAs to stop this. So I don't know what went wrong or where it happened, but like that's not good. It's not good for the industry. There's no reason why we need that. So in that case, I understand why they want opt-out confirmation.
Absolutely.
It's about time.
Don't cry now that there's opt-out confirmations. This is what happens. If you have a problem, then it's this firm.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not naming names. I'm not going to attack, other people right now. But a handful of people out there know who it is. And if it was you that did this, you know what? Thanks. We have opt-out confirmations now that are going to be forced in the industry.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I think anyone that sends out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of messages and don't respect stop language to voters, they shouldn't be able to play in our sandbox. You're not allowed to play in this business. It's a serious business.
Yeah.
Okay. Our clients take it very seriously. Other vendors take it seriously. So get your stuff together. Okay. And that also would then bring us over to talking about some of the 10DLC increases and some of the big announcements that's happening in 10DLC. Hector has done more 10DLC registrations than anyone else in the country. Thousands of these this year he's done them. So he's going to talk to us about some of the rate increases and the fact that everything's changing again. Something to do with T-Mobile as well. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Hector.
Absolutely. So we do have big news coming down the pipeline there. T-Mobile recently announced that they're increasing, the surcharges for all unregistered traffic. Okay, and this is not going to happen a year from now, 10 months from now, 9 months from now. This is going to happen a lot sooner than we think. I'll get into that in a bit. We do expect all MNOs to follow suit as well. Okay, so and it's going to be more of like a staggered approach. There are going to be increases, every month basically until you get to this increase. Okay, you're going to see 1.2 cents for SMS. Okay, and you're going to see 2.1 cents increase for
2.1.
MMS.
That's a serious increase this
2.1
time.
on top of
For
the charges
unregistered.
that
Yeah.
you're already
Okay.
paying for
Yeah.
these messages. So it's definitely a big increase, not something that you want to be paying. There's no reason to be paying.
No.
Just get 10 DLC approved and you should be good to go.
Yeah, that sounds.
Doesn't make sense.
No.
Why are these guys
Doesn't make sense at
paying
all.
that kind of money to send unregistered
And on
traffic?
top of it, only getting 60-70% delivery, if that.
Is it like a like? I know there was a lot of problems when 10DLC was first. Like, is it a lot of is it a big cumbersome issue at this point in time? Like, why are people still doing that?
There's no reason to be sending any unregistered messages, to be honest with you, because the process to get approved is actually very easy. It's no more than just filling a form, making sure all the information is there, the EIN, legal name, phone number, address, right? And once you submit this, that's it. We just do a mini review just to make sure that it's all in place and correct. We submit it, and you should be approved in sometimes within a day.
So your team's doing all the heavy lifting ahead of time before we even submit it to ensure we get these guys registered within 24 hours.
Absolutely.
So it's like when they're doing the pre-review, if they spot one of these problems or something like that, you can just head it off.
Yeah, one common problem that we see, I don't want to say a problem, but just one of the major hurdles, if anything, is just the website. Right. What it comes down to is sometimes it's just a privacy policy. If you're collecting any sort of information on your website, you should have a privacy policy. It's best practice. You should have it all there. And then, somewhere on the website, you should be collecting some phone numbers with a disclaimer. Right. So the disclaimer is important. The language on the privacy policy is important. If you have that in place, like I said, with everything else, just the name and contact information, and you submit that to us, you should get approved. And that alone, like even if you had to just adjust something on the website, that can literally take a couple of minutes. It doesn't take long to just, add something here or take something away there. It's not a big deal. You get that to us, we do the review, we submit it, that's all. And that process is just a couple of minutes.
So like these guys must. So okay, we've got you've gotten calls and people are saying, oh, this guy is not making me not run unregistered or this kind of. So there's still a lot of guys doing it. So what's going on? If it's that easy,
It doesn't make sense, Josh. I don't get it. Number one, they're paying a lot more money. They're not getting their messages delivered. Something's got to give there. Like.
Yeah, like I said, there is no reason to be sending any unregistered messages at all just contact our team if you have any questions, even before you sign up or anything like that. Just give us a call, shoot us an email. There's common questions that we get all the time. We can answer anything for you. Make sure that you're out in the field and ready to go. All right. The amount of unregistered messages, if we even do anything, it goes between 2 and 4%. Right. This is unregistered messages. So in terms of registered messages, you're looking like 95 plus.
Yeah.
That's where we want to be. That's
Yeah.
where everybody should be in the industry.
Well, it sounds like, you make it pretty straightforward for them. The funny thing is that purely when this all started, we pay people's fees. We walk them through, we handhold it. Stop with the unregistered.
Yeah.
What else can we do? I don't know what else we could do. So if you need any help with 10DLC, then they can contact your team.
Absolutely.
Just give you a shout and
Anytime.
contact your team, and there we go.
And then message blocking is part of it too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You get
That's
way,
true.
as mentioned,
Yeah.
after mentioned, you get way lower deliverability when you're running unregistered. And it's something that just never made sense to us. And we've talked about it before, why people are willing to pay more money to get less of their messages to actually arrive.
Yeah, makes sense. That brings us to we made some predictions.
It's about a year ago, wasn't
About
it?
a year
about a
ago.
year ago.
And it was about the same stuff we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So about a year ago, we made some predictions at that time during a rate increase from T-Mobile.
Yep.
They did the same thing a year ago. This isn't new.
Yeah,
They
it's
raised
not
it 1 to 1.7 a year ago, and then everyone followed suit. You're saying right now that these raises with T-Mobile more than likely, Hector's crystal ball, you think that they're all going to follow suit the same way, right?
100%.
So, we know those rates are up, but since we made some predictions, let's play our predictions last year
Let's do it.
and let's see if Peerley was right or wrong about some of these.
All right.
Okay, let me just play this here.
We also know that the June 1st surcharges, they'll be followed by more in 2023, like I already talked about from T-Mobile. And we fully expect that in the coming months, Verizon will also introduce their own increased surcharges for unread messages, and the pricing will be in line with T-Mobile and AT&T.
Just to kind of continue a little bit what Dan was mentioning, as he mentioned with Verizon, we really do feel that Verizon will follow suit with these increases in the immediate future, and that's going to kind of create that unification of a majority of the routes now over 10DLC will have these increases in place. We also are predicting that all aggregators will be forced to block 100% of unregistered traffic prior to the 2024 cycle. As you've seen, we predicted Verizon following suit. We said that the other MNOs are going to follow suit, but not only that, we said they're going to continue the rate increases. And now we're sitting here in 2024 and they're continuing the rate increases. But we also said it leaves us with a total ban on unregistered traffic in 2024. Were we right or were we wrong on that, Dan?
You called it.
Well, we now have confirmation that we were in fact right, and that in 2024, there's a total ban coming to unregistered messages. We don't know if it's going to be soon or if it's going to be sometime later this summer or the fall, but it's definitely coming in 2024. It's been definitely communicated to us.
If I had to guess, I would say before the election for sure.
Yeah, we don't really know. What we do know, and what has come up, is that DCAs are going to start enforcing a 95% minimum threshold on registered from their customers.
Yeah.
So other companies like Peerley, if they're not at that 95% threshold, those DCAs are going to remove them from their network until they get up to 95%.
So that's happening soon.
And that's happening September 1st.
Wow. That's before the election.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even though there's tons of extra fees and everything else, it doesn't matter how much you pay. And we said that. We said that last year. You can go check out our webinar. It doesn't matter how much you want to pay or what vendor you want to use or what you want to do. They're blocking it. You're done. The days of unregistered messages is done. It's over. So not only are you going to start paying a lot more money in a week, you said June.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's not far away from now. It's just a couple weeks, June 1st, 2024. So a couple weeks away, that's it. You're going to see some increases.
So that's a good reason to be registered. And don't worry, if your client, which is a busy campaign, doesn't have time and is not getting back to you, well, then you can tell them, well, that's okay. I'm sure you don't really care about getting your messages out, because this is now going to be kind of the law of the land. They are banning it outright. Do not get caught
Yeah.
without having your registrations in place. This is happening fast now, guys. This is happening very, very fast. A major DCA just said September 1st, 95% and up, or you're done, right? And then that's going to be followed with 100%. So that's actually quite interesting to hear. That's actually pretty big news, I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 3 or 4 big announcements right there.
Yeah.
Do you want to just recap them before moving on?
Realistically, it's the largest change that we've seen to the whole
Yeah.
10DLC SKU since the launch of 10DLC.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
This is huge. You're talking major fee increases right now from T-Mobile, but probably from all the other vendors as well. You're talking about the mandating of opt-out reply or opt-out confirmations from everybody, right? You're talking about that 95% threshold by September 1st on all traffic, or they're going to start dropping those vendors from those DCAs. And then, of course, probably right after that, a total ban on unregistered across the board.
Wow. Well, I mean, look, in terms of breaking news or stuff that's happening, it's a busy time right now. There's a few other really important things we want to go through as well. So now I want to talk about this, and we actually have a really good guest that we can bring on about this, and I think this is a big deal. So
It's a big deal.
last year there was a webinar from, I'm not going to name any names. There was a webinar from a P2P, I guess a P2P provider, but now I don't even know if I can call them a P2P provider. I would say they're a pretty, they're a household name, which I never talk trash about other vendors or competitors. As a matter of fact, we just got back from the Polies. We were hanging out with you guys were hanging out with a bunch of other kind of vendors.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way, to any
the
of
winners.
the winners.
Yeah. DC put on a great show in DC. It was great.
So look, there's competitors in this industry, but we actually have really good relationships with them all. There's lots of work out there for this. So we don't make it a habit to go after or to talk trash about a competitor, and we're not going to start today. I'm tempted because I'm horrified what a couple of these guys are doing, but I'm not going to. A bunch of you, it's a small industry, and a bunch of you guys are going to already know who we're talking about. Last year, there was a webinar, and on this webinar, these people that were not lawyers, not legal experts, decided to say that you didn't have to follow the declaratory ruling from the FCC, and you can essentially ignore the FCC's declaratory ruling on peer-to-peer texts for politics, and instead focus on a court case that Facebook got themselves involved in.
Yeah.
And there is a footnote that could lend for future arguments in some lawsuits. Now, it wasn't related to text messages.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with text messaging.
And I'm not the legal expert. I'm not going to pretend to be the legal expert, but it's not been tested in court. So let's focus on this thing. They were literally saying, don't worry about the FCC. Don't worry about the human interaction. It's robo-text they're doing?
Yeah, automated robotext is what they call it, right? So I've been speaking to a lot of people over these conferences I've attended over the last few months, and there's been quite a few of them. Mm-hmm. And more people have decided that they want to cut corners, cut costs, and trick their users by sending fake P2P messages, which is, it's sort of like a mass text.
Since that webinar, it's spread. You're saying it's spreading.
Like wildfire.
So people are...
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, no. God
and the
help
problem is the end user doesn't realize that their vendor is either sending a real peer-to-peer message or a fake peer-to-peer message. So it's irresponsible, number one. And people are following along. And look, they're going to get into a lot of trouble with this type of...
There's the potential for sure.
Definitely.
You're ignoring the FCC.
FCC has given us this hall pass. They gave us this gift back in 2020. They said, look, this is the way you need to conduct your business and send messages. However, people are going against that. And that's going to be a huge problem.
So, I mean, and we're going to get into this a little bit more, but like initially you have this webinar, they say, okay, you don't need to listen to the FCC. And just so not everybody might not understand, but you can easily do your research on this. In 20, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to pretend to be one, but in 2020, the FCC issued a declaratory ruling, and it said essentially, look it up for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I am not an attorney. I'm not going to pretend to be one. Yeah. It said something along the lines that as long as you're sending your text message out with human interaction, or human has to, send the message out and dial the number or something, then it's not considered an auto dialer under the TCPA. Yeah. It's in plain language. To this day, you can find it if you type in FCC political texting. Type it into Google, you'll be able to find it right there. You can also type in P2P declaratory order or something like that, and you'll be able to find it.
June of 2020, that's when they came down with it.
So since then, you had all of these, of course, apparently many other peer-to-peer companies. We designed these pretty brilliant systems. In terms of Peerly, it allows you to send these messages out very, very fast and manage thousands and thousands of conversations in real time. But then this is looked upon as being burdensome because you need to have volunteers or humans to send it out.
That's right.
We understand. So now the solution to this is let's exploit a gray area at the expense of our clients and essentially ignore the FCC's ruling and just start robo-texting and pretending it's P2P.
Yeah, and pretend it's P2P.
So yeah, that's like I guess we don't have to be lawyers to know that something sounds a little bit weird with that. Yeah. So Tab said, Josh, he said there's a lot of people that are saying that they called it one click. They said it's one click P2P. I'm like, that's called a robo-text. Yeah. It's not called. That's not a P2P. That's a robo-text. One click. It's okay. It's a one-click message. So what we want to do is we wanted to bring an expert on. So we're gonna do that. We actually are gonna bring some real top legal experts on, and not just. I don't want you to just hear from me or Aftab or Dan or Hector. Yeah. So would you be surprised if I told you that I went back to the site of the person that held that webinar and they had completely backpedaled?
They backpedaled on it.
They completely backpedaled on it.
Yeah.
And if you go through and you read their site, they make it very, very clear that it's not a done deal.
Yeah.
And that you have to use it at your own risk and blah, 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 and fine print all the way up.
I'm not surprised, Josh.
But if you think that they started the narrative,
right,
and they can't even stand behind it right now. I mean, anyway, I think we've got to bring on our expert.
Let's do
it. But before doing that, you think that your top worry is people facing financial ruin. That means people are going to get sued. You think this kind of stuff's going to happen. So I have to just quickly talk about this app.
Okay.
So there's this app. Aftab was telling me there's this app, and it's called LawHQ or CallerHQ. He said it's like Tinder.
It's like Tinder for texting.
If you guys haven't heard about it, you're going to hear about it now. Okay? So you said you originally heard about it on Troutman. He said that they're evil.
Evil.
So Troutman, he's a TCPA attorney.
Right.
He has this list of ranking, and in his ranking, he said these were like the most evil plaintiff attorneys of the TCPA.
Yeah.
And they have this app, and I'm going to try to do it justice, but it's like Tinder where it sits on your phone, and if you get a message, you swipe.
Yeah, essentially, you download this app, right? If you get an unsolicited text, you're going to swipe left. If it's a real message that's important to you, you're going to swipe right. And what's going to happen is as you're swiping left to these messages, they have some sort of AI tool built into the background where they collect all these people's information, they analyze it, and then they go after you and they chase after you.
It's all automated.
It's all automated. Yeah. And they're coming after you for millions and millions of dollars, and they're splitting the proceeds,
brilliant.
Believe it or not. It is.
It
is.
Okay, it's brilliant. Wow. Yeah. I'm going to sign up for this. I get tons of spam texts all the time.
Yeah.
So You gave me a couple of videos. Let me actually just let me play one of these videos for you guys. Give me 1 second here.
Let's take a look at this video.
Okay, just take a look here.
CallerHQ enables you to finally put a stop to spammers by suing the spammers. This video will explain how to report spam and what the process is for suing the spammers after you report the spam. In CallerHQ at the bottom, you have your messages, your calls, your voicemails, and your contacts. To report anything as spam, simply swipe left and click Report Spam. Once you report it as spam, in the top right, in your spam tab, you can view all of the spam you've reported.
There it is. There it is. So they're literally, it's sitting on your phone. They're swiping left, and that's all they have to do.
And then they go file a TCPA lawsuit.
And I'm going to play another video that Aftab gave me. They split the fine 50% with you and them.
Wow.
Look, it's brilliant. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
good for him. I'm going to download this.
But they're going after the vendor that's sending the messages.
Of course.
They're going after the campaign.
So for
committee.
political clients, it's not brilliant. Mind you, just so you know, we know that political clients are going to get caught in this.
Yeah.
So these political guys are using these robotexts, then they're, it's going to be a problem, right? Let me play this. Give me a second here. Let me just, okay. This is the guy.
So we ask you to download the app, not just for yourself, but for the common good, for stopping these spammers once and for all. We literally are digging deep. We're sending subpoenas to domain registrars, to phone companies saying, who's the person behind this number? Who's the person behind this domain? We are tracking them down. We are suing them. We are holding them responsible. And we would invite you to participate. We actually will track down the spammers, sue them, make them pay, make them stop, and put money in your pocket. And that's how we make money. We only make money if we can make you money.
If you don't get paid, we don't get paid. There's the famous the famous thing. So this is the guy that's behind it there, and you heard him. So essentially, people are flagging these spam messages.
This app is picking up a lot of steam.
Yeah.
I've spoken to multiple people that have mentioned this.
Oh, there's going to be thousands and thousands. They've automated.
Yeah.
It's smart because you guys get spam. Everyone in the audience gets spam. None of us like spam. But now, take a step back. Put yourself in a voter's place. They're getting messages all day from a political person. Who knows what the situation is, but at some point in time, they're going to swipe left, and that's going to be a lawsuit. Well, what happens if somebody's sending out millions of messages and a few hundred people swipe left or a few thousand people swipe left? That's going to be a class action.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to happen, but, okay, they're going to get sued and they're going to say, oh, these people sent me a robotext. And this is what's going to happen. The plaintiff or the campaign or the vendor doing this fake peer-to-peer business is going to say, but hang on a second, we have this footnote here on Facebook and this and so on, where we would much rather say we're following the FCC to a T.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the Facebook case isn't very, very interesting. I'm saying that we should follow the FCC.
Which side would you rather be on?
The other thing is that the reason why they're doing this this gray area business that could literally destroy their entire companies is because the problem is with peer-to-peer texting is it takes a bunch of resources and costs money to have the messages sent out by a human. But if you don't, I don't know if you know this or not. No, obviously you guys do, but for our audience, we have an entire team of canvassers. We have a massive team of canvassers. They're employed in Alabama and they're employed throughout Florida. Okay? So we can help you. You can hire us. We can help you send those messages out.
Yeah.
A fraction of a cent, and sometimes it's included. Just we'll help you get them out.
Why take the risk? It doesn't make sense.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And now, as promised, we have our special guest that we're going to bring on. Tom Cunningham, we know Tom quite
guy.
well. Tom is with LawLord. Tom is literally the top of the top TCPA attorney in the country, and he's at the top of the top law firm in the country. They're officially ranked 100 best law firms. I would put him at number one. I call Tom the oracle of the TCPA because of his like strategic mastery kind of in the courtroom. And this guy can literally, he has this ability. He can literally predict what the other side is going to do or is thinking. It's kind of freaky. He's quite something. He has over 30 years experience in defending class action litigation. He is a leader in the class action practice at his firm. He's been part of hundreds of TCPA cases, no word of lie, like giant cases as well. And he's a pioneer of TCPA defense class action litigation. And his firm was actually, I think, the first firm to dedicate part of the practice to TCPA. This was long before it was popular. These guys were in the trenches from the very, very early days. And then, of course, Tom and others in the group have published and spoken extensively on the TCPA. So when I say that we've been lucky enough to bring on literally the top expert today, I'm not joking around. And I could go on and on and on. I'm going to introduce him now. I would say the oracle of the TCPA, Tom Cunningham. Tom, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. The political industry appreciates it. Our audience today appreciates it. I'm going to just hand this over to you and let you take this away.
Well, thank you, Josh, and really thank you for that kind introduction. I'm going to have to add Oracle to my web bio now. And I really appreciate you having me here today and the opportunity to speak with you and your audience about the risks of bulk texting, even after a very favorable Supreme Court ruling in the Facebook versus Dogood opinion, and ways that organizations might mitigate the remaining risks of being sued under the TCPA for bulk texting. You know, the subtitle of my presentation today is "The Class Action Plaintiff's Bar is Resourceful and Relentless." And we definitely see that in the wake of the Facebook opinion. As we all know, the TCPA contains statutory damage penalties that are very significant and create significant exposure for organizations that are using bulk texting. There's every incentive for the plaintiff's bar to continue filing lawsuits under the TCPA, notwithstanding the Facebook opinion. And frankly, as you'll see as I work my way through my presentation today, they are doing just that. There are continuing risks for organizations that are using bulk texting technology. So let's start with the Facebook opinion itself. The Facebook opinion, as I mentioned, was a very favorable opinion. Basically, the Supreme Court reined in what many of us felt was a runaway trend in the Ninth Circuit, but also outside the Ninth Circuit, in what technology constituted an automatic telephone dialing system under the TCPA. And as we all know, in order for the TCPA to apply, the technology used to send a text message must be defined as an ATDS, or an automatic telephone dialing system. Basically, the Supreme Court returned us to more of a text-based definition of what constitutes an ATDS. But there's still a little bit of ambiguity, and many people have heard of what is now sort of an infamous argument known as the footnote 7 argument. Without getting too deep in the weeds of footnote 7 of a Supreme Court opinion, the court basically said in dicta that a system might need to both generate numbers and randomly or sequentially dial them for technology to be considered an ATDS. And many defendants in lawsuits that have been filed under the TCPA since then have said, well, our system doesn't generate a number, and therefore it's not an ATDS. And that's a good argument, and it's an argument that I've made and that we will continue to make. But unfortunately, the rulings in the district courts are not consistent. So far, we've seen a real mix of rulings. We've seen some favorable rulings, but we've also seen a number of unfavorable rulings. And when I say unfavorable, I don't necessarily mean that courts were finding liability against defendants, but simply denying motions to dismiss, which obligates you to then litigate a case to conclusion, or denying a motion for summary judgment, which forces you to go to a trial, or more realistically, settle the case for a significant amount of money. As I said, the plaintiff's class action bar is both resourceful and relentless. They're not going away. And I've got a slide here where I indicate the statistics last year show TCPA class action filings were up 18.7% in 2023 over 2022. That's after the Facebook opinion. So these cases are persisting, even though we have a favorable ruling from the Supreme Court. We've also seen a significant uptick in claims being filed under state laws. There's many state laws that are modeled on the TCPA. And, the state courts operate a little bit differently than the federal courts. So we're seeing more cases being filed there. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce just reported last month on the continuing threat of the TCPA in the wake of the Facebook ruling. And I commend that report to those of you who are interested in what's happening since Facebook was decided. That report indicated that plaintiffs' firms have presented creative arguments to get around the clear ruling in Duguid and conjure up theories of expanded liability since the decision was first published. That's consistent with what I'm seeing in the industry. Like I said, plaintiffs' lawyers are going to keep coming at this. But there is an alternative to bulk texting. Bulk texting leaves a defendant exposed to potential significant liability under the TCPA because you're going to have to successfully argue in a case where you've used bulk texting technology that the equipment used does not qualify as an ATDS. And you have to hope that the district court goes your way on that, which it might, but it might not. The alternative is peer-to-peer texting. Now, peer-to-peer texting has already been reviewed by the FCC, and the FCC has indicated in a declaratory ruling that a real peer-to-peer texting platform is not an ATDS and therefore does not implicate the TCPA. Real peer-to-peer texting platforms require a human being to send each message. They require text messages to be sent one at a time. They lack the capacity to transmit more than one message without a human being manually dialing each number. And they have no capacity to store or produce numbers, nor randomly or sequentially dial those numbers. Because they have all those features, and because you have an FCC declaratory ruling that expressly states, we make clear that if a calling platform is not capable of originating a call or sending a text without a person actively and affirmatively manually dialing each one, that platform is not an auto dialer, and calls or texts made using it are not subject to the TCPA's restrictions on calls and texts to wireless phones. You've got a very powerful argument to dismiss such a case or to obtain summary judgment. And in fact, that is what we are seeing in the courts. There's 3 cases that I'm aware of in which text messages sent using a peer-to-peer text messaging platform was challenged. The first one is a case called Pascal versus Concentra out of the Northern District of California. In that case, the court granted summary judgment for the defendant, finding that a peer-to-peer texting platform did not constitute an ATDS. That case is significant because it was appealed to the Ninth Circuit, and that decision was affirmed or upheld. In Berger versus Republican National Committee, a case out of the Eastern District of Texas, again, the court granted summary judgment for a defendant that used a peer-to-peer texting platform on the basis that that platform did not constitute an ATDS. And finally, in Bowman versus Unterman for Congress, a Northern District of Georgia court, the defendant filed a motion to dismiss. It was never ruled upon. The case was settled for an undisclosed confidential amount immediately after that motion was filed. One might speculate that the plaintiff in that case saw the argument and preferred to settle on some reasonable basis rather than take the risk of an unfavorable ruling on that motion. So the case law so far involving peer-to-peer texting platforms is pretty much 100% for the defendants, whereas the case law on the footnote 7 argument under Facebook is kind of a mixed bag. There's some wins, but there's some losses too. TCPA risks are going to continue despite that Facebook decision. But if you're using a peer-to-peer text platform, you've got a much stronger argument for dismissal based on the FCC's declaratory ruling and this new case law development.
Now, one thing I'm wondering is, say, for example, there's somebody that's out there, obviously not with Peerly, but they're sending out like a robo-text, and they get sued, or there's a problem, or the FCC sues them. They're going to go to court, and I'm sure that they're going to bring up the Facebook footnote 7. And as we, I think, both agree, it's a good case. There's some merit there, just hasn't probably been thoroughly tested the way we would want it to be. More than likely, I'm not an attorney, but that's probably something that would eventually have to go to summary judgment. And if it does have to go to summary judgment, what would the cost be for that defendant to make it all the way to summary judgment using something like Facebook 7 in court? I'm not going to hold you to it. It's not a quote for services. I'm just curious because I want people to understand that there's always risks in everything you do, and some of them could be pretty expensive.
Sure, fees in these cases, Josh, as you probably know, can be quite high. It can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, just to win these cases. And as an aside, that's why the plaintiffs' lawyers keep filing. Even when they're not convinced that they're going to win, they'll file the case because if they think they can cost a defendant $1 million in legal fees to defend a lawsuit, they know the defendant will pay something less than $1 million to settle that case. So, if they think they've got a 50-50 shot at defeating a motion to dismiss or motion for summary judgment, they're going to file that case. There's really no disincentive for them to come. And the defendant is going to incur that, from anywhere from a couple $100,000 up into the millions of dollars, depending on how large the case is and what the circumstances are in legal fees, just to win the case, just to defend and win.
And if it goes all the way to judgment, and we know that there's no guarantee on anything, and I know there's no guarantee in anything. This is it's relatively untested. If this was brought all the way to the end, it could cost millions of dollars to defend it, but.
Absolutely.
If that particular judge on that particular day decides that that's, the arguments, merit in favor of the plaintiff and you lose, now what could be the consequences for something like that?
Well,
financially?
It's ruinous. I mean, the statutory damages under the TCPA are $500 per call or text up to $1,500 per call or text if the court determines the violation to have been willful. So, you look at how many text messages you send or how many text messages are typically involved in your typical lawsuit. It doesn't take very long before they exceed the ability of most defendants to actually pay those judgments.
Yeah, it could be complete financial ruin.
Complete.
And that's where, on our end, we've been saying the same thing, that, if we have the declaratory ruling, it's very clearly written. Let's rely on this and let's let other people develop Facebook versus Do Good maybe on their own dime. In the meantime, I don't know. I see the merit and I actually do like it, but like you said, I like the FCC ruling a lot more. So if just to kind of summarize some of this down, would you recommend one of these political campaigns to kind of ignore this ruling in favor of relying solely on this Facebook Do Good case? It seems like you're pretty clear with your advice on this.
No, I think as I indicated in the presentation, you have on the one hand a pretty clear ruling from the FCC that peer-to-peer texting platforms do not constitute an ATDS. whereas the Facebook decision contains some ambiguity, and there's some room for disagreement in the district courts on what does and doesn't constitute an ATDS. So you take a little bit of a risk if you're going the Facebook route, but if you take the FCC's declaratory ruling, at least the cases we've seen so far, far less risk.
Great. I really appreciate it, Tom. That really summarizes this. I really wanted our audience to hear from you directly. When a lot of this was talked about a year ago, it was done by, I would say, just like a medium-sized firm in the industry where they were outright advising people, you do not need to follow the FCC. Instead, rely on this case solely. And as far as I've seen, they did not bring in any experts. They didn't have any attorneys. So, it's nice that now it's a year later. We probably should have done it a lot sooner, honestly.
Yeah, we should have.
But I'm glad we've finally been able to get an expert to the industry to hear it directly from them. And, I appreciate that it was you and you were able to fit us into your schedule. So thank you very much, Tom. I really, really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time today.
Well, you're more than welcome, Josh. I'm glad I had an opportunity to be here today.
Well, thank you very much. And of course, the Oracle of the TCPA, Tom Cunningham. Thank you very much, Tom. And we'll let you get back. We'll let you get back to your meetings because we know we squeezed us in. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Since Tom joined us, we also had our Director of Legal Compliance, Andrew Eiler, that's also joined us. And Andrew's going to help do a little bit of a summary for us in a little bit.
Welcome, Andrew.
But
sounds great.
Welcome to the table here. Right now, what I want to do is I want to introduce our Chief Engineer, Ryan Brindley. Ryan, it's thanks for jumping on. I know you also are extremely busy. Ryan lives his life in what I call a continuous crunch time, which means there's just never any downtime for Andrew or for Ryan and Andrew. The thing is that Ryan is one of the chief architects of our entire system, specifically with peer-to-peer texting. So when it comes to experts on peer release technology, I don't think there's anyone better for me to bring on than Ryan. Ryan, welcome to the table. Ryan is over in our Alabama office. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Yeah.
So a couple quick questions here.
Okay.
You heard Tom, you've heard the event, you heard us talk a little bit. What I want to know is, can you send a robotext with Peerly? Let me be very, very specific, okay? Can you send a bulk message without a human sending out each individual message? Is that a possibility to do with the Peerly system?
No, our system is entirely set up that every message has to be initiated by a human on a web browser or in an app, but from our software, it has to be sent by a human, by a canvasser. Okay,
so of course we all know that, okay? Yeah. But let me rephrase this, okay?
Sure.
We don't want to have any, we want people to really understand this. Let's say that we have 1 million messages, that we have a client that has 1 million messages to send out. And the client, starts up the system, and they have to get this message out. It's really, really important. Can we tweak some stuff, do some things, some fancy stuff on the back end just to blast it out really quick for them? Is that a possibility?
What you're probably thinking of is like an override system, and we don't have any of that. If they want to get those 1 million messages out, they just need more canvassers and more human power to go make that happen. There's no back-end system or override system that would go and automatically send those out.
Yeah, and that's helpful to know for everyone. And of course, you can send them out very quick over Peerly. It's a very streamlined process. And if you don't have the volunteer resources, we have a Canvas team in Alabama, in the Huntsville area, or in Florida, and you can click and you can let us know that you want us to step in and help, and our canvassers can help with that. You can literally hire them to do this, and it's very, very inexpensive. So funny enough, when the system was written, it was written specifically under and with the guidelines of the FCC. We read the FCC very carefully, and we wrote the system accordingly. This was not a robotext system ever, and we don't subscribe to robotexting, and we don't believe in robotexting. Of course, if you're doing something like a short code or something like that, there could be certain uses for it, but Peerly is a peer-to-peer texting provider, and we like to look at it as real P2P versus fake P2P. You heard it from Ryan directly. Peerly does real P2P. We have modeled our system under the FCC guidelines. When you have a vendor that's talking about a one-click or a vendor that's talking about a blast, this is fake P2P. It's not P2P. It's a robotext. Okay? So thank you very much. Thank you very much for jumping on with us, Ryan. And I am just going to, Eiler is here. Andrew, of course, Andrew is the Director of Legal Compliance. You've heard Tom today, and you've heard Ryan, you've heard all of us. Of course, you've been involved in so many discussions, over the years with all of this, right? When it comes to this level of compliance, you probably understand this stuff better than anybody. Should we be following the FCC guidelines with everything that you know, or do you think it's okay to send out these robotexts or, to rely on some of these other kind of court cases? Is there any input you can give us on that?
Yeah, I think when Do Good and Facebook came out, it excited a lot of people, but the footnote 7 was commentary by the Supreme Court on auto dialers. And what's happened since that case is that because it's commentary, there's been a whole wide range of decisions in different jurisdictions across the country. So it's created a little bit more confusion, and it's been our position anyway that this confusion is risky. While Facebook footnote 7 is a great thing for the industry, what we really looked at closely was the FCC declaratory order from June 2020, which really laid it down in no uncertain terms. And they multiple times in that order, they looked at human intervention on both the list side and on the dialing side. And I know that that the court cases that you've mentioned and that Tom has talked about have created a heck of a lot more certainty than footnote 7 has in the way the courts look at these different systems. And so any service provider that is allowing bulk robotexting is really not in compliance with what the FCC laid down back in 2020. And the 3 cases that Tom discussed, that was the deciding factor in those cases was the human intervention, both on the list side and on the dialing side.
Well, okay, so there's 2 things in particular there. Thanks. 2 things in particular there that you mentioned. First, that we like Facebook versus Do Good. So don't get me. I don't want our audience to get us wrong. What Eiler said was that, look, the industry got excited about this, and the reason why is that whenever we have a chance to inject additional clarity into these definitions, this is something that does excite us because it does aid us a little bit more towards compliance and really understanding what these guys all want. So we're not attacking or getting down the fact that there's this a footnote in this kind of more unrelated court case. We're not. It has its place. What we're saying, and what I think that Eiler just said, was that we have a much less complicated path, which is this direct declaratory ruling from the FCC. There's three court cases now that have went forward and argued the human intervention as laid out in the FCC, and all 3 of them were successful. So it does get to be a little bit of a no-brainer. So I appreciate that. I don't know if there's anything else you have to add.
Yeah, just to be clear, they were successful in avoiding liability under the TCPA.
Yeah.
And the offside of that is that if they didn't have human intervention, there's a likelihood that those cases would have gone against both the users and possibly the service providers.
Yeah.
And so we're risk adverse both for our users and for ourselves. So we've gone to great lengths to make sure that we look carefully at the FCC's orders and we build our technologies to be compliant with those FCC orders.
Our clients are quite prominent public office holders as well as quite prominent firms. And Purely has always taken a compliance first approach. And that's really what today's about. And we're not looking to scare people. We're literally trying to help bring on experts and help kind of educate the industry a bit. Purely already does it the right way. The problem is the guys that are doing it the wrong way. We don't want to be pulled in or have our industry vilified because of a few people that could be outright tricking people or teaching people to cut corners, right? And we've come up with solutions to make it easy so you don't have to cut corners, right? Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Before letting everybody go, we want to tell you about something that's quite important, something very special we're working on. We are working on something called the P2P Collective. We are launching this. It is an industry group where responsible P2P providers and users can go for resources and to have input on our industry as well as issues that we can tackle together. This is going to be a democratized collective, which means that there's no central owner or no one person is involved or in charge. It's us as a group that's in charge. And to be honest, we need to have an industry group that is speaking as one and helping dealing with the issues that our audience is facing as well as the issues that we're facing. And to really help keep peer-to-peer texting a responsible communication channel for many years to come. So we want you to become members. It's free. We want you to sign up. We want you to participate in these meetings, and we want you to really have input on the issues that you're facing and how the collective can come together and find the proper areas and people to fix these problems. It's p2pcollective.com. We're going to put it up on the site. So absolutely check that out. I think that's going to be massive for the industry because we do hear about this regulation, that regulation, this regulation coming down the pipeline all day long. But who is speaking on your behalf? Who is speaking on our behalf? We need to speak on behalf of ourselves and on behalf of our industry. And who better to do it than all of us together? Okay? P2P Collective is where we want to go. Anything to add, anybody? Anything, Dan, to add before we go?
Be a busy year. It's going to be a very, very busy year coming up.
Have anything to add?
Yeah, look, if you guys are still looking for a peer-to-peer texting provider, please reach out to us. We'll be able to save you some money, provide a compliant tool to help you guys with your sentence.
Eiler, anything to add?
I think you've covered the
compliance from their compliance director. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate it. Remember, go to p2pcollective.com and had a great time. And who knows, maybe we'll be back doing this again in a few months.